More on this now. Brett Baer, anchor of Special Report. Good morning to you, Brett.
Morning, Ed.
Noticed you popped up at the White House briefing yesterday. Obviously, your show has to go back and forth. Maybe you had to take the show directly to the president. How did that all go?
Well, it was one way to get on during that hour, and obviously it was good. You've been in that briefing room many times for many years, and it was good to be back in there. John graciously let me sit in to ask some questions. I think, you know, it's a fascinating time because the president uses this for information, but there's all kinds of different questions, including the immigration order, which he'll sign today. I think we have yet to really dig into what the exemptions are going to look like. We know the guest workers, and he talked about farmers, and the real purpose behind it. I asked him about it yesterday in the briefing, and you know, he said it was to put Americans first in line for these jobs. Obviously, Joe Biden and others are criticizing that. Yeah,
in fact, we have that exchange. You teed it up perfectly. Here's the president on this executive order.
By pausing immigration, we'll help put unemployed Americans first in line for jobs as America reopens. So important. It would be wrong and unjust for Americans laid off by the virus to be replaced with new immigrant labor flown in from abroad. We must first take care of the American worker.
So I think that was when he teed it up right before you went back and forth with him. But the bottom line is they're adding exceptions here because the business community was not happy with what the president laid out at first.
Sure. I mean, you have a lot of people and different high-tech jobs that had a pipeline of people coming in. Remember, before all of this, the 22 million who filed for unemployment, a big concern from business around the country was not getting workers enabled to fill all the jobs they had. Now the president is turning the tables on that, and we'll see what the exemptions include, as he mentioned, the farmers and the guest workers already.
Yeah, and I asked about you in the briefing room because I wanted to get a feel for what you saw up close with not just the president, but you got to talk to the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, as well, as they make these important decisions in consultation with governors who are leading the way as we've seen this play out in terms of reopening various states. Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, was on with Stuart Varney a little while ago talking about kind of a new timetable for this summer. Listen to this.
We are going to get back to work fairly quickly, and you know, we're kind of operating under the environment that we are going to open up parts of the economy, and we're looking forward to, by the time we get later in the summer, having most of the economy, if not all of the economy, open.
Most, if not all of the economy open by the summer. What do you think?
Well, I think that's ambitious. I think that the key thing here is that we have two crises going on, right? A health crisis and an economic crisis. I think it's fair to say that no one wants to see people die, and no one wants to see the U.S. economy killed. But there is nuance here, and that's what I think Dr. Birx and Dr. Redfield and Dr. Fauci, with the president in that rollout of guidelines, were trying to provide states. Now, there's a lot of criticism about how different states handle it and whether it's too soon or not. But I think it's going to be up to each place. If you look at those charts of, if you take New York and New Jersey out of the equation for the nation, the numbers look a lot different across the nation. And I think, Ed, the newest thing today is this autopsy out of Santa Clara County in California, which suggests that the first death happens February 6th. Not February 29th in the U.S., as we once thought, which means the estimate is that that person likely contracted the virus early January. And that also means that it could have been around a lot longer in the Bay Area in particular. And perhaps that's why the numbers in California are a little bit lower than they were in, let's say, New York or other metropolitan areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Another important question is something you've been leading the way on in terms of your reporting. The exclusive information you brought to the table last week about what the U.S. intelligence community is doing as they sift through where all this started, whether it started in the Wuhan lab. Fresh just a few moments ago, I'm reading off my notes that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is having a news conference at the State Department. Among other things, he lashed out at China over bullying in the South China Sea. We've got a live picture of him there. He also said that they've been shirking their obligations after the World Health Organization as well. People wondering about accountability. You can go after them. You can have a lot of rhetoric. But is anything going to be done about it?
I think they're going to look at a lot of different options. And once this crisis kind of dies down, at least in numbers, you're going to see some action. First, taking manufacturing over, especially in pharmaceuticals and supply lines from China back to the U.S. As we've said, 100% clear across the board in agencies that there was a major cover-up. They're trying to get to the bottom of the origin and whether it came from that lab or not. But you look at the other data points and what China did right after the outbreak, and that's where people's focus has been. Even this news story about China agents in the U.S. spreading the early disinformation that there was going to be a total lockdown with the military involved at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we started out in the briefing room together, about 2006, covering President Bush. Here we are 14 years later. We're a lot older.
That's right. We are. It's still fun to go back there. It's still the same place, although they take your temperature now a couple times before you go in.
Whole new normal everywhere. But what is the constant is we will see you tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern. Brett, thanks for coming in.